There you go.
There we go. Okay. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Elmont Village Planning Commission for April 6, 2023 to order, please. May I have a roll call?
Tedeschi,
Here.
Meek,
Here.
Kolka,
Here.
Schneider,
Present.
Dyke, Zender.
Here.
The next item is the approval of the agenda. There has been one, according to David, there has been one change to the agenda, and that is we will not be doing the site plan review, which is number 2 under new business. So other than that adjustment, could I have an approval of the agenda? I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Next item on your agenda is the approval of the minutes for the March 2nd, 2023 meeting. Those were included in your board packet. Unless there are any alterations or changes, I would accept a motion to approve the minutes as they're presented. I have a motion. I have a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is public comments, of which we have none this evening, and we have no public hearing this evening. Under new business, the first item on the agenda we have tonight is election of officers. In your packet, Kim included the fact that the first meeting in April every year, according to our bylaws, we're required to elect officers for the coming year. And the officers include chairman, vice chairman, and secretary treasurer. So at this time, I would open up the floor for any nominations for the first position, which would be chairperson.
Well, if you're still willing to do it.
I am, if you guys don't mind. I'm planning on being here, so. Are there any other nominations? The nominations are closed for chairperson. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. The next position is that of vice chairperson. I would open up for any nominations for vice chairperson.
Glenn, you still willing to do that?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to nominate you.
I have a motion and I have a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations for vice chairperson? The nominations are closed. I would entertain a motion to approve Glenn as vice chairperson. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carried. The next position is that of secretary. Is there anyone, I would accept any motion or any nomination for secretary at this time.
I'd like to nominate Gary Zender.
Do I have a second for that? I have a second. Are there any other nominations? All those in favor for Gary being secretary? Could I have a motion to approve?
Yes. Did you,
Oh.
did he?
Oh, yeah, I would accept that.
Would you accept? I should ask.
Yes, I accept.
If not, we're going to give it to you anyway.
I will accept. That was fun.
Well,
It's
very
not up to
good.
you. It's up to us.
If you vote on yourself, there's still gonna be 5 of them.
That's right, I'm still gonna get outvoted.
You're still outvoted. You're going to get it no matter what. Did we get a vote?
I don't know.
Bernie
We
motion.
did? No, we didn't get a vote. Could I have a vote for Gary for secretary, please?
Aye,
Tim seconded.
I seconded.
Yes.
Okay.
And
All in favor?
Glenn moved, yes.
Aye.
Abstain.
And Steve abstained. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. So we have our 3 positions for the coming year.
Just for clarification, just in case we haven't addressed a particular issue in the past, I abstain because of the fact that it's my job on village council to appoint. So the proper thing to do when we vote on these, where I'm the appointing party, I abstain from voting in any of our bodies, DDA.
Oh, it doesn't make any difference. I see.
I abstain because
Okay, okay.
I don't want it to conflict with my obligation to appoint.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. All right, we've tabled the site plan review this evening. So, David, I will turn the meeting over to you since you have several important updates for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the postponed item that was originally on your agenda, that was something that came together pretty rapidly in the last few days. I think starting on Monday, the applicant that you've met, Greg Dennis, that's doing the development in the industrial park, became aware of the fact that the revised zoning amendment for the deferment of parking spaces had been approved, published, and was now in effect. And so he wanted to come before you tonight with the intent of asking for a reduction in the required parking spaces that were originally approved by you folks back in September. So you'll recall when we had that review of his original site plan, that his original blueprint did not have the required parking spaces per the ordinance at that time. And so he ended up doing a bump out of the parking lot area to capture another 6 spaces, I believe, that got him up to the 63 required spots based on the ordinance at that time. So he wanted to come back to the well. And initially, he made it sound like he wanted, to ask for a full 20% reduction. And he, presented an updated blueprint, and we gave it to Alex Ritku, who we mentioned prior to the meeting starting, that Alex is the new assigned planner from Rowe Professional Services to us, as Caitlin Hobbin has taken a new position with another firm. And so, in fact, I think her last day is next week, if I'm not mistaken. And so Alex was not privy to any of the discussion in that review process because he just came on board with Rowe in the last 2 months. So he started, trying to get up to speed and looking at all the old prints and the letters, that were part of your packet from Doug Skyless and so on, indicating that further review had taken place after the original site plan review that you folks approved. And there was, let's say, I don't want to say a miscommunication, but a misperception perhaps on the part of Mr. Dennis, where when he came before you, he was hoping to be able to get, in his mind, a full site plan approval, that any questions or concerns or follow-up issues that were identified in that early September meeting, that he took those comments and basically started interfacing with the engineers at Rowe to resolve those, and which led to the follow-up letters that you saw that were communicated during the month of September, where he was addressing those items that Rowe had identified that needed to be addressed on the prints. And the last letter that Doug Skyless wrote indicated that their review was complete and that he had satisfied all of the outstanding items. Well, as time has gone on, and since this was our first rodeo with a new development in the industrial park, at least in my brief tenure with you folks, that we've learned that there's some miscommunications that are taking place between CCA and our fire chief, where the fire chief was not getting advised as to various inspectors having reviewed prints, et cetera, and ended up discovering, as a result of a review that the fire chief did on another project, that he actually has a potpourri of items that an applicant needs to abide by that meet the fire code. And for whatever reasons, Mr. Dennis's architecture firm and engineers didn't seem to be fully up to speed on some of these issues that were NFPA requirements. And so as we started looking at the blueprints, and kind of got the chief involved, maybe at the 11th hour, if you will. He identified some issues that needed to be resolved as well too. I ended up having a on-the-site meeting with the fire chief and Mr. Dennis to resolve any of the loose ends that the fire chief had identified. And as a result of that, the applicant actually updated some drawings kind of in preparation for tonight to come before you. And we discovered that in his quest to try to, ramrod the process through, if you will, that he had taken the bump out that was giving him the extra parking spaces and just eliminated that from the site plan. It kind of raised the question in Alex's mind about, well, where's the deferred parking spaces? They weren't identified on the blueprint properly, and so it's like, well, are you asking for a reduction of the original 6? Right? But he had also taken out the lines on additional parking spaces, so he was, in one sense, asking for a reduction of 20, but it was not clear cut on the blueprint as to what his real intent was. And then we also found out that a fire hydrant that had to be relocated based on our on-site meeting last week, that it was not drawn properly on the updated blueprint. So Greg Dennis came into my office yesterday and said, let's just put everything on hold. Let me get this done straight. It's not going to be the end of the world. Based on the fire chief's communication, which the fire chief was going to have a written report to CCA at the end of this week, identifying his approval of all of the changes that Greg Dennis was putting in place, that he would be then able to be issued a building permit where he could actually start moving dirt and putting footings in. But the parking lot issue is something that, that's still months down the road before a parking lot would be installed. So that's the background that led up to us making the determination that it didn't make any sense to try to come before you and present something that wasn't really finalized on paper. And so, and Alex, to his credit, was concerned about trying to draft a response to a blueprint that he got 36 hours before the meeting, in which normally they want at least 1 to 2 weeks to review something of that nature. So we put everything on hold, and we'll come back with updated drawings that better reflect where the deferred parking spaces are, the relocation of the fire hydrant with the line where it should be installed. And hopefully we'll be able to come before you then where, in one sense, everything that happened after the Planning Commission review in early September and then through the month of September, to some degree, Mr. Dennis kind of did an end around where he actually ended up getting an informal final site plan approval because the engineers ended up rubber stamping all of the changes that he had to address. So, but we found out there was some deficiencies here in the last couple of days.
In our early motion, the one last August or September, whenever it was,
September, yeah.
there were a few items that we stipulated in that motion because Kim recapped it. And one of my questions was, have all those been met? Because there were some specifics that we as a committee put into that motion that he had to follow through on. And then you bring up the fire marshal. That was another one of my questions as I was reading through this. I said, where's our report from the fire marshal that said this building is okay, or it's not okay, or it's got problems? So I'm glad you brought up that issue because that was critical. That was one of my questions I was going to ask today.
And if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me if my memory is wrong on this, but I think some of those issues that you folks identified, you gave us the liberty to pursue those from an administrative standpoint, that, if we got the fire chief's report and the applicant, had to address any concerns. Well, that ended up being a very prolonged process, as we've learned, because the fire chief was waiting for reports back from CCA, And, it's just one of those things where things kind of fell through the cracks. Mr. Dennis, when he first approached us back in the fall of last year, was indicating that he wanted to, start moving dirt before the winter set in. Well, because of trying to finish up some other projects, this project ended up getting delayed until the spring. So at the end of the day, I think things have gotten into a position where it's to everybody's benefit at this point. We both have gone through a learning curve, and since he's basically going to be putting up spec buildings that are very similar to what we have before us tonight, or had before us, that we'll have a much more seamless process going forward. And
So when he gets done finalizing whatever he's going to, then will the fire marshal look at that again to make sure it meets all his requirements? Okay.
oh yeah, there'll be plenty of time between.
Could he issue us at least at our next meeting a short note that says, I've reviewed everything and it is acceptable, he meets all the fire code requirements?
Make sure that his final report to CCA, letting them know that he's approved his end of the thing, that it'll be part of your package next month. So I apologize for the unsettling, if you will, of you guys doing a lot of homework on some blueprints that really weren't reflective of what needed to be before you tonight. And even if Mr. Dennis was here, at the end of the day, we would still need to have some updated blueprints, to review as part of a final site plan review.
We want him to succeed, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
But he's got to do it, like we have like as committee members, we've always said, whatever goes on those blueprints is the only thing we can hold anybody accountable for. And if those blueprints are not right, shame on us. That would be our situation. So they've got to be accurate, and they've got to meet all the requirements that the village asks for. And that's all we're asking for him to do, so.
And also next month, he'll have full scale drawings for you to be able to look at as far as a hard copy, because obviously you can zoom in on certain areas of these prints, but they are difficult to read even on a computer with the blow up. So
Now, has DPW looked at this project to make sure that they don't have any problems with what he's doing?
it's correct.
They have, okay.
Yeah, some of the kind of like the loose ends that, even Greg is finding out that his consultants that he, uses, like he's got fire suppression designed for this building. And his engineers had not bothered to come out to test the fire hydrants to make sure that there was enough pressure there so that the fire suppression system would work. He actually ran into a problem in a nearby community that he's doing a development where when they tested the fire hydrants, they found out that there wasn't enough pressure, so, some things had to be modified in that project. So, and also one of the other things that Chief Smith brought to our attention is that this is the first time that he's had to deal with a pre-engineered interior, if you will, as far as the inside of the building. So he's using this as a learning tool for the rest of his staff, because this is the same type of structure that's going to be installed on all the other lots that Mr. Dennis has. So again, in one sense, the delay and the timing of things, I think, has proved beneficial to all parties. And going forward, we'll have a much smoother process, less hiccups, less issues, because we're going to get everybody involved in the discussion and know, that the fire chief does need to be in the loop. In fact, Mr. Dennis actually complimented Fire Chief Smith. He said, this is the first time I've had that much dialogue with the fire chief. He said, I go to a lot of communities and I asked, do you need the fire chief to review these prints? And they said, no. It's like,
That's all well and good until you have a fire.
yeah.
But that's, so, if we get the first one right, then he's planning on building the other ones from the same plans.
Pretty much,
I mean, with some
basically square
modifications.
footage
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
lot size and things of that nature. But, And now that we have the parking lot deferment, he can come before you and ask for that reduction, but he has to demonstrate where those extra spaces would be installed. And, some of the good questions that our new planner asked as well, if you're eliminating these parking spaces, is it still going to be concreted or asphalted, or is it going to be gravel? Is it going to be seeded? Those kinds of questions that a planner thinks of that weren't being addressed properly in the updated print. So again, it'll be some good dialogue between Alex and Greg as they get the updated prints and be able to come before you next month with good information.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Did you also have an update on the saddlery?
Yes, I was able to get a hold of the owners, one of the co-owners of the property. And whereas they had indicated that they hope to be here by April with final site plans, because of a backup with their engineer who's doing the drawings for the final site plans, that gentleman apparently is swamped with work, and his project has been put in the back burner. And plus the gentleman is working on some of his own projects, trying to get those completed. So I was told that it's really up to the engineer to finish the drawings so that they can come before you for final site plan approval. They indicated that it's probably going to be 1 to 2 months before we're in a position, and they know the timing that we need to have those prints a couple weeks ahead of time so Roe can look at it and provide a report, et cetera, and you have enough time to review the final site plan drawings as well. And so I would suspect, based on what I was told today, that June is more likely than May.
Any other updates?
I talked to Dr. Barkham this afternoon. He is still, yes, he bought the PNC building. Yes. And it's been a slow process. He said it moved quickly at first, but a contractor that is redoing the flooring told him a month ago that they would be there to do it, and he's been waiting a month now. And that's why there's some materials that are on the front of the building, because they were told, clear everything out. So they've got the back area loaded with material, and then there's a little bit on the front porch area as well. But supposedly the contractor is indicating that the materials will arrive on Monday and that they will install the new flooring on Tuesday. And then that should resolve the issue of some of the materials that are on the outside of the building that people have noticed over the last few weeks because nothing's moved.
Is he planning on maintaining both facilities?
No,
He's going to close the other one?
I think at some point he will, yes.
Okay. And what about the Bakery Deli?
Bakery Deli is still under renovation. The owners are working hard at it. I think they were hoping to open up sometime this month. That's still their goal. We'll have to wait and see. I have not gotten an update on a tentative date, but sometime in April was their goal to have the interior in a position where they could bring in customers. They still want to do some exterior, cleanup, with a new sign, maybe a new awning, and obviously some paint. And one other project that we still have a prospective buyer for the movie theater and the medical building. We had a meeting with that individual this past Monday with a conference call with a representative from the MEDC to see if there was any funding or programs that could be utilized to assist in the development of that project. That's still under investigation. There's still a potential concern about the need for a phase 2 environmental study because of the old gas station that existed between those two buildings that now got blended in with a medical building lot. And so if indeed The buyer wants to have that done before he consummates the deal. It could be still a couple months before that becomes a reality. And
There are no tanks in the ground there, are there?
that's the unknown.
Oh, it's unknown.
It's unknown. They did a phase 1 analysis and they x-rayed apparently the lot, and nothing showed up that way, but the environmental firm said the only way to know for sure is to do some digging or boring. And that's where you get into the big money. Yeah.
They can't be fiberglass. Those are too old. They gotta be metal tanks. Yeah.
Somebody in the last few days actually showed me a picture of that gas station that
If
existed
there was
there.
anything left in them, it could have gone anywhere if they broke open and started to leak. So
Tanks would have to come out anyway, correct?
If they're there,
If
yes.
they're there, they have to be, yeah, they gotta come out.
you have to clean the soil to the point where there is no more contamination, however big a site that is.
And that typically runs over $100,000.
Yeah,
When I have projects like that.
yeah, it's very expensive.
Just
The-
for,
the soil has to be entirely excavated until it's completely tested clean, and then they have to bring clean fill back in to fill it in. So and if that stuff leached and went wherever it went, that's where they gotta go get it.
We know Governor Whitmer's glad to take the contaminated soil. So that would be a good deal.
Yeah, that could end up being extremely expensive if it's that bad, you know.
And it actually is slightly more complicated than that. From the standpoint of where Dollar General is, we were fortunate several years back to get a $1 million grant from the state of Michigan Initiative, I think it was called. And so we got that grant for where the Dollar General is right now, and they dug up the soil. I forgot how many tons they took out, and then after about a year, if I recall correctly, announced that we're done. And we're done means that you can build, but not residential. You cannot go below the soil. You can pave over it because it was supposed to be our new post office, which never happened. And there's still toxic material in the soil. So even if after all of that, $1 million grant, they didn't get all of it.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunately such a nightmare. And it's fortunate that we were able to put that building there. But no basements, no residential.
I remember before they started, we had to have them do boring so they could figure out where the contamination was, so we could determine how far they could go down without touching it. Yeah, I remember that.
So it's very complicated. And who knows?
Anything else for us, David?
yes, one last item. Just wanted to apprise you of some behind the scenes activity that's been going on related to grants that we're seeking or funding that affect our capital improvement plans. And obviously, the Planning Commission gets involved in that process as we update those plans. Just so that you're up to speed in case you might have forgotten, because it's been a few months ago. We did get awarded a $4 million grant from Congress with the help of Congresswoman McClain to help us resurface East and West St. Clair, along with a water line replacement on East St. Clair and a small sewer project on West St. Clair. And we've approached Senator Ruth Johnson, who has indicated that she is in support of our project and will submit a request for a $1 million earmark that could get tied into the upcoming budget that the legislature will be passing later this summer. And by the time that gets appropriated, we may not know until Christmas time. And so I kind of use the analogy, I'm hoping that we get a gift under the Christmas tree this year for $1 million from the state. And if that does happen, between the congressional monies and the state monies, we will not have to pay a dime out of our pocket for that project. So that's the goal, because Roe estimated it to be a $5 million project. We're required to do a 20% match. So that's why we've gone to the state to seek the $1 million earmark that Senator Johnson was very gracious in offering her support. And she's going to work her circle of influence as best as she can in light of the fact that her party's now in the minority. And so we're going to hope that both sides can play nice in the sandbox and distribute some monies to regions of the state that may not be represented by the majority party. So we'll see how that plays out. But we've got some folks that are working on our behalf as well, too, behind the scenes to massage key players that are on the Appropriations Committee based on some old connections, even childhood friendships that still exist today that we're going to try to take advantage of and grease the skids, if you will, and make sure that the right people view Almont as a community that is deserving of this opportunity. And with that, we've also, for next year, Senator Gary Peters sent out a request for projects. And so we're going back to the well for the U.S. Congress again through Senator Peters' office. And we've submitted requests for infrastructure projects that total over $4 million. And if we're successful in getting some appropriations in that line as well, it'll be a banner Christmas for us. And with that, we also have 2 public hearings coming up because we applied with Eagle this year for what is called intent to apply for clean water and drinking water projects for funding. When we applied for those projects, we were told at the time that the median average income for the village of Almont was $200 below the state median income. And that made us more eligible for getting points in the application process that possibly would have helped us in getting grant monies for those projects versus just funding, or it might have been considered a forgivable loan. Well, Eagle has moved the goalpost since those applications were submitted, and now they're saying that the average income for our village is several $1,000s above the state average. And so that changes the complexion of our applications, but based on some initial scoring that our engineering firm that we're using now, Fleece and Vandenbrink, for these projects, that we're highly optimistic about one of those applications that will score more points and possibly get some funding. And so part of the requirement is that we have to have a public hearing for each of those projects. So we had to establish a special meeting at the end of the month, which is on the 26th at 7:00. So we're going to interrupt the start of the DDA meeting by having this public hearing, and one of the engineers will come and help facilitate the discussion for the public hearing on that project. And then they will come back to the second meeting that the council has in May for round 2 of the other application. And then we'll find out probably in the fall if Eagle approves either of those projects for us. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. And once we see how everything plays out, which really won't be until the end of the year, we'll be able to reassess how much financial influx we've received to help address a lot of our capital improvement plans and modify the plan accordingly based on the monies that we receive. So we'll keep you apprised as we get information, but right now I don't think we'll really know anything for several months at this point. But I just wanted to bring you up to speed on what's been going on over the last few months with the help of this new engineering firm that we're working with that's had a lot of success in getting grant monies for their clients.
So we're using that engineering firm primarily to help with grants?
These
So we
projects,
still
yes,
use Rowe Engineering for other projects?
for like site plan reviews and
Site
things
plan,
of that
okay.
nature.
Okay,
But but for these major infrastructure projects, Fleece and Vandenbrink has demonstrated their capability. For example, the city of Croswell, over the last 5 years, has received $40 million in grant monies. And that is primarily because of the work of the engineers that are assigned to them. And so we've got good people that have been assigned to us that are helping facilitate this process.
that's great. That is great. Yes,
Yes, who you know.
yes.
Because that obviously makes a big difference. With regard to St. Clair, is that going to be a complete tear down all the way down? A complete rebuilding of that road?
Yes,
Not
because
every
as far as East St. Clair, yes, because of the need to replace the water main that's there.
How far will you go with that? Just to the edge of the village on East St. Clair?
Yeah, it's actually, we're doing East and West St. Clair, so it's from one end of the village limits to the other.
All the way across?
Yeah, as far as the road construction, yes. And then it's really a minor sewer repair project down near the bridge on the west side of West St. Clair.
See, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll still have curb and gutter. Oh, yeah, I think, let's see, is it the south side of the street that doesn't have curb and gutter?
After the bridge. From the bridge from the bridge until the west end of the village limits. It's shoulder.
Right. I don't believe curb and gutter have been designated for, the far west end of the village limit.
Assuming that goes forward, that would be targeted a year from now?
Yeah, as of right now, we're hoping.
Roughly, okay.
By the time we've learned through our engineer friends at Fleece and Vandenbrink that another community that they helped get a major award for, that it took months before the paperwork got through the system. So when we applied for this through Congresswoman McLean's office, we were told that that would be a 2023 project, that it had to be done by the end of the 23 fiscal year, which ends October 1st with Uncle Sam. And realistically, we're being told that we'll be lucky to see the paperwork get approved by the agency that oversees these projects sometime in the spring or summer. So by the time that happens and then you go out for bid and all that good stuff, it really ends up being a 2024 project. And potentially,
She's looking for that money then to come out of the federal 24 budget, not 23.
well, no, it's still 23.
Really?
It's just set aside until it
Okay.
gets used.
Okay.
But yeah, so we'll just have to wait and see, when Uncle Sam gets the paperwork approved, when the funds are available to be used, and then, going out for bid, when contractors are available, potentially, it could end up being in our 24-25 fiscal year, where it would get done maybe in the spring of 2025. But those are one of the things we just have to wait and see.
Well, you did well tonight. Thank you. We had a lot of information. Thank you very much.
I have one.
Happy to share.
We have a question.
What's going on with the huddle?
Oh, thank you. I've got news on that too. To some extent, I need to be delicate about sharing some tidbits of information that have been shared with me. But the gentleman that acquired the Huddle, we know owns several other restaurants under the Detroit Burger Bar name. And he's been elusive, to put it mildly. Numerous people have tried to reach out to him without any success. We've been told that his primary hangout, if you will, of all of his restaurants that he owns is Oxford. And when you contact that restaurant, they say, well, he's here on Tuesdays sometimes, but it's reached the point where so many people have tried to reach out and leave a message that the staff there doesn't even take a message anymore. They can say, well, I'll tell you, I'll take a message, but he's probably not going to return your call. You know, if he hasn't called you yet, you know, I mean, that's the kind of response we're getting. And so through some knowledge of our Lapeer Development Corporation executive director, he suggested that we reach out to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, because apparently in a transaction like that, that if the building is closed up and there's no sales, that there's a limited window of time where the new purchaser, you know, doesn't have to be in business, if you will. But the Liquor Control Commission views it as, you know, we'll give you maybe 90 days or 6 months to be in a, you know, an absentee situation. But then if you don't open up for business and start having sales, you could lose the license.
License it to escrow.
Yes, the license goes into escrow. So we're going to try to reach out to this individual and let them know that we're moving in that direction, that, you know, we want, you know, what are you doing with this property? But just by sheer happenstance, the people that acquired the building just north of the Saddlery, the old Tri-City Plumbing building, or the R&R Sports, that
The painters, right?
yeah, the
Those
painters,
are
yeah.
Painters, yes.
that they were hoping to acquire, you know, the house that the sons live in, where they were basically going to do a complete tear down of both properties and put in some sort of small strip mall with a restaurant and, you know, things of that nature. And as I've gotten to know those people, you know, and this was one of those things where a younger relative got ambitious and tried to do the grow facility in the back building. And we closed that down. You know, that was one of my first issues coming to town. I had to
Yes.
shut down a grow operation before I got started.
You're going to start out right.
Well, again, what, you know, could have been, let's say, you know, a bad blood relationship that started, I ended up having a meeting with the nephew and the uncle who, out of several brothers, they have this corporation. And I met with the lead brother that was involved in that project. And we've developed a very good, cordial working relationship. And the nephew has actually run a restaurant business in the past. And in some conversation I had with him a couple months ago, discovered that he actually knew or knows the owner of the Detroit Burger Company. And I had the good fortune of finally catching up with him yesterday afternoon and said, hey, is there any, you know, have you had any luck getting a hold of Richard? And he said, well, you know, it's funny you ask, because I just happened to cross paths with him at a social function 2 weeks ago. And I was asking him, you know, how's things going in Almont? And Richard gave a great sunny sunshine account of things that, you know, we're getting ready to, you know, renovate and things, you know, da-da-da-da-da. Well, obviously, you know, we know, and this gentleman that I'm talking to knows that, you know, he shuttered up the doors last September during Heritage Day and hasn't opened up since. So anyway, I suggested to the nephew, try to get an intermediary to break the ice and approach him about, you know, that there's a potential person or business that would be interested in acquiring the Huddle, and see if he's willing to sell, because obviously he's not doing anything at this juncture, and it's just hurting our future DDA development plans as far as a potential social district and things of that nature, because we're really getting queued up. There's a lot of stuff that's happening behind the scenes with the DDA getting ready for a bigger and improved Heritage Day Festival this year. So thank you for asking that. Yeah, that was on the back of my mind to share that, but
Investment standpoint, what Richard's doing towards this building is nonsensical. Why would you put that kind of money in and just sit on it? Unless he's looking for losses, tax-wise.
Yeah,
But it can't make any sense of it at all.
his other places are making a lot of money and he's using this as a write-off,
Yeah,
which
So-
he could, sure.
something
but
smells.
we'll try to use this connection that developed from a bad grow operation and see if, because this family,
See, all good things come.
has the financial wherewithal to acquire that building and actually make something good out of it. So we'll see if we can keep nudging that thing in that direction, see what happens. That's kind of in a hold pattern. They initially had somebody that they were queuing up to move into the building, but with the winter time and everything that and other projects that the lead brother out of the corporation had, and plus I think he spent some time in Florida, so it's getting close to being available for rental purposes, but so something might happen soon. And the gentleman that I mentioned that I'm talking to directly was going to check with his uncle to try to get an updated report and get back to me on what's happening there.
Any other questions from anybody? Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Excellent report. That's a lot of information you gave us tonight. Does anybody have anything else for the good of the order? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.
Do you see that Almon's moving?